Stop what you're doing and make sure you watch this video because you can get super rich in Path of Exile 2, 4.0.2, and every future new Path of Exile 2 league. Historically, when new leagues drop for Path of Exile, it's a complete economy reset and easily earn hundreds of divines super fast within the first week of a new Path of Exile 2 league. And I'm going to show you everything you can do, get ahead and get rich super fast. Before we get into how to make all these easy divines, first I want to talk about the prerequisites we need to set up so that way we can get to that point very quickly. One of the prerequisites is ideally for your first character, you really want to speed run the campaign so you can complete all acts 1 to 6 as quick as humanly possible. Keep in mind with the release of new acts, some of you are going to want to take your time and enjoy it, and that's completely up to you on how quick you want to move through the campaign. Now, obviously the main notes here for speed running the campaign are going to just be go through the campaign, don't stop, continue progressing until you get to that level 60 or 65 mark and complete Act 6. Throw on gear if it's overall better. If it's not overall better, throw it away or sell it. But in terms of looking into gear, you need to just turn and burn gear early on to get through the campaign quickly. Now, obviously it's important you stop and pick up all of your passives along the way, including the new ones for Acts 4 to 6. And again, those are going to be shown on your map, for instance, with the little plus icon next to either a boss icon or, for instance, like this loot icon. Those are going to be permanent passives that you get bonuses for your character. That includes a bunch of weapon set passive skill points. The much easier and quicker it'll be to run through the campaign. Ideally for the campaign, especially when picking a class to level quickly through the campaign, you need to focus on 3 things: your build speed, its damage, and its mobility. What I mean by that is always using movement speed pieces, whether they're uniques or regular pieces. To max out your movement speed can make you go through the entire campaign like 30 to 40% quicker. Also, you want to make sure you're building your build out so that way you have it prioritized. Again, for movement speed, even if you select 2% movement speed, you can easily build up so that way in some classes you can actually get like 40 to 50% movement speed buffs from your passive tree alone, which is a must-have for completing the campaign very quickly. Additionally, unique items like the Thrill Steel Helmet will give you Onslaught. That gives you 20% increased skill speed and 10% increased movement speed. Now, skipping on in order to get to those juicy divines, we're going to be around level 65 or so after completing the campaign, and you're going to be able to access the map device so you can start running maps. Now, the key with this is sustaining your maps early on, because that's the one thing that's going to keep you low level, keep you slow, and keep you from getting all the juicy gear and divines super quick that we're going to be talking about. As you start to run maps, you're going to get your quests that you have to complete a certain amount of tier 1 maps, a certain amount of tier 2 maps, and tier 3, etc. And you have to complete these in order to unlock all of your Atlas skill points. But you can do this in a very inefficient way. A couple of tips here. Ideally, you want to be aiming for running 3 levels over what your current level is if possible. This may be harder to do until you have your Atlas tree fully skilled out, but the reason for this is because if enemies are 3 levels above you, you're getting significantly more experience versus if they're your level or even lower than your level. And leveling our character efficiently in a new league, this means that once we get the quest to complete, let's say 10 tier 1 maps, we want to be completing those maps as fast as humanly possible. Meaning we're rushing the map, completing it, getting done with it, and not necessarily finishing or clearing the entire thing out. If you have a problem where you're running out of waystones, then ideally, yes, you might want to clear out the map. But again, I'll show you ways around that, but we want to speed through them to complete these quests to get our Atlas points as quick as possible, fight higher level monsters, and that in turn will make us level much quicker. You don't want to spend all this time fully clearing these lower tier maps if you don't have to, because it honestly is a waste of time. And just to give you an idea, let's say you're level 65 when you get to maps and you throw in this tier 1 waystone. This is going to mean the monsters are level 65. Right at your level, you'll be getting a normal amount of XP. Eventually, we want to get to the point where we're running through these maps so quickly, even if you feel like you're not leveling up, that's okay. The quicker we get through these, the quicker we level our Atlas skill tree. And then once you get to where you're fighting, let's say monsters level 67 or 68 at a tier 3 or 4 waystone, even if you haven't leveled up, that will level you up significantly faster than just grinding tier 1s until they're fully complete. It's much more efficient this way. This way you're fighting higher level monsters, completing all your stuff very quickly, and maxing out your XP because of it, meaning you're leveling more, you get more powerful, etc. It just makes sense to do it like this. And even better than that is good old Eldorado, who is today's sponsor. Eldorado.gg makes it easy on the average gamer who doesn't have a ton of time but still wants to enjoy their favorite games. Eldorado.gg offers currencies, top-ups, in-game items, and even accounts for some of your favorite games. Let's say you wanted all the camos in Call of Duty but didn't want to spend a month grinding for them. Boom, it's that simple. Or you're a fan like me of old school RuneScape and realized you wanted a Torva set like when you were a kid. Even cheaper currency like top-ups for V-Bucks on Fortnite. and the cheapest in-game currencies, period. You can easily click any game and basically search and find any in-game item that you want. Now, what makes Eldorado great is they have verified sellers, meaning no schmucks, 24/7 customer support in case you're feeling lonely, as well as secure transactions. Plus, their Trustpilot reviews are basically double Popeyes. I'm already sold. Click the link in the description to get an exclusive discount, and make sure to use code CreativeGaming on checkout to save yourself a nice chunk of change. Thanks Eldorado.gg for sponsoring today's video. Now, for map sustain, we're going to mention a couple things because you want to set up specifically for getting to your tier 15 maps to unlock all your Atlas skill trees. Now, for sustaining maps, the super simple and easy way, you want a specific Atlas tree setup so you can unlock your Atlas points quickly and then make the transition over to your final skill tree that you're going to be using for getting tons of currency. Now, trust me when I say this, you will not have any problem with map sustain if you listen to these tips. Our first one we're going to take is this increased rarity to maps, increased rarity to maps, and then constant crossroads. So we're getting 20% increased quantity of waystones found in your maps. All it takes is getting 3 Atlas skill points to get to this, and this already makes it an absolute ton easier for you. I wouldn't waste time on doing these 10% chance to be a higher tier. Essentially, we just want to get more waystones. We'll get more higher quality waystones because of it versus getting higher waystones but not really getting any. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And then once you do that, you're going to take increased rarity over here and 100% increased rarity of the waystones you find in your maps with Fortunate Path. Then we want to take the increase of items found in your maps and then taking the high road where you have a 20% chance to be a tier higher for your waystones as well. And then finally, keep taking increased quantity of items and then increased quantity of waystones found in your maps. But this tree right here will keep your map sustain on point, and you should hopefully really never run out even early on in the game. Another easy tip, but orbs of transmutation and orbs of augmentation, even if you don't have a bunch of these early on, you're going to have a ton of these and they're basically almost free to buy. So don't ever worry about running out of these. You should be using these on every single waystone you get early to upgrade your waystone drop chance, which literally just gave us a plus 90% right off the bat. I would also recommend even possibly using your regal orbs early. This way you can consistently get things like plus 200, plus 300 waystone chance until you get your map sustain fully in control. Because nothing will slow you down more than not having enough map sustain. I'm telling you, it is so worth using 20 of each of these orbs to save yourself hours and hours of struggling with this. This will ultimately help us catapult quicker to tons of currency and gear. Now, once you've unlocked all of your Atlas skill tree points, you ideally want to set up your Atlas skill tree to be something like this. There will be some new extensions from the new updates, but this is always a really safe path. This is going to max out the amount of currency and gear you're getting pretty much all the way. Now, while you're leveling up in maps, if you're not struggling, feel free to continue to do this. As you level through the campaign, ideally you want to complete the first Chaos Trial and the first Trial of Sehkemas, so that way you can unlock your initial Ascendency points. That'll obviously give you a ton of power for your character. But until you've gotten a decent way through mapping or having some sort of struggles, I would wait until you've become pretty powerful or much higher level before you worry about going back to get your second Ascendancies, primarily because you can waste a ton of time going in there struggling trying to do them at a lower level when you can just level through things like mapping, become a lot more powerful this way, get better gear, and go through and just blast through it at one point and only spend an hour on it instead of like 7 or 8 hours. Now, on top of completing your Atlas skill tree and getting it set up for the end game like this, since your Atlas tree carries over across all of your characters, the next step you want to take is trying to max out all of your different mechanic skill trees, meaning your breach skill tree, your boss skill tree, the arbiter skill tree, expedition, delirium, and ritual. I would say primarily the ones I like the most are honestly the ritual and the breach skill tree because they give you the most rewards and the most currency, again, to help make you rich. Now, you can do this a couple different ways, whether it's farming or buying the currency to actually fight the bosses for these mechanics. As early as possible, you want to do that and get points spec'd out into these so that way you can start immediately farming them for much more massive compounding loot. The quicker you spend currency to get the materials to upgrade these, the much more currency you're going to be making in the long haul a lot quicker. So it's worth it to spend the currency if needed to start leveling these up. Keep in mind something great about having friends that play this game is if you get the materials in order to do this and you have a friend that has a really great build that can really just destroy these bosses, you can essentially start the map. They can join you in the boss fight and essentially just kill the boss for you. As long as you start the map, you will get your Atlas point for whatever given mechanic you're trying to do. So if you're not strong enough or you're struggling, I would highly recommend letting someone join you that can do these, and these can help you boost your Atlas points very, very fast. So now we're going to get into the juicy part about how you can just max out your divines and get the best advantage for currency early on in the game and set yourself up pretty nice. nice. Now that we've completed the campaign, got our Atlas tree fully set up, and slowly started to get some of our mechanic trees maxed out, we're in a prime position to start getting tons of currency. Now, before we actually start getting currency, having overkill damage for our build isn't really priority at this moment. You want to make sure you can run through stuff very well, but also have a good balance of increased rarity of found items on your gear. And if this means giving up some damage so you don't 1 billion bazooka shot a boss, so be it, it's worth it. You need to be at around 100% increased rarity or as close to it as you can, so that way you can be maxing out the amount of insane stuff that you're getting. Ideally, I've found it's best to have it on your rings. You can get about 30 to 50% there. Having it on your helmet and even having it on your boots, this can get you around 100% just with these pieces alone if you get enough rarity find between all of them. While again focusing on movement speed so we can farm very quickly. Now the first most reliable thing in my opinion is the Trial of Chaos. Once you're able to run things like the Trial of Chaos with around area level 80 and scribe ultimatums, this is going to give you the most bang for your buck. And ideally, once you hit around level 85 or 90 with the right build setup, you can run these very quickly and efficiently. You can finish these in around 12 to 15 minutes per run, meaning you can get about 4 runs per hour. Now the primary profit center for Trials of Chaos is the fact that they drop 3 or 4 soul cores at the end of each run without even fighting the trial master. And some of these, like the soul core of Sehkemas, can sell for 1,300 exalted orbs. It'll be a lot less on the start of a new league, but can get you multiple divines very, very easily. Even some of the more common soul cores like this can get you plenty of exalted orbs and help you, and can easily let you get half of a divine to a divine minimum on every single run, meaning you can make around 3 to 5 divines every single hour just by running Trial of Chaos with really no extra luck involved, while being up to 10 to 15 if you get some really good soul cores. The other important things being these ultimatum fragments, which you'll get 1 of each time you complete a Trial of Chaos right before you get to the Trial Master. Now things like the Cowardly Fate will go for 100 in this current market, the Victorious Fate for 118, and the Deadly Fate that can go basically close to like 75% of a Divine Orb even early in the season. So blasting through these Trials of Chaos are 100% guaranteed amazing profit for the time spent, and it's not totally up to chance. You know you're going to be getting some decent loot. So this is my tried and true recommended farming method. Next I want to talk about farming the Trials of Sehkemas primarily because it's honestly really hit or miss. I've heard some people love to farm this and some people don't. You can get some really insane relics that are worth tons and tons of divines, as well as different gems like the Against the Darkness gems or the Time Lost gems from the treasure chests after bosses 3 and 4 that can easily be worth 1 or more divines per gem that you get. The thing with this is it's completely random, and even if you're running a Trial of Chaos with multiple relics that give you additional relic chance, sometimes you get absolutely squat for spending 45 minutes to an hour running a Trial of Sehkemas. So this is your warning. Unless they buff this extremely, I would hesitate running Trial of Sehkemas if your intention is to farm, especially right off the bat. Now, market related, one thing I want to mention is divine converting. And what I mean by that is, even though I've basically given away all of my divines, but divine converting is important for one reason. If you don't take away anything else I say, take away this, because the market of POE 2 from the beginning of a league to an end is essentially inflationary, meaning on the first day of launch, Exalteds were worth 80 and now they're worth 600, even spikes up to 800. So you should always be converting to assets from your Exalted until you're ready to use them for stuff that's going to hold its value. You get 80 Exalteds, convert them to a divine orb so they hold their value and increase as time goes on. And then as you need exalts to trade or upgrade or use for whatever, you just convert 1 or so back at a time. So you're always holding your store of exalteds and your value so that way it continues to go up. Doing this or converting your currency into different items is the only way for it to hold its value. If you keep a bunch of exalteds on you, you are wasting so much currency. It's insane. And you're going to have that remorse moment where you look at the market and go, divines are out of control and my exalteds aren't worth anything now. Well, I told you. So make sure you're doing this. Now, arguably the biggest way we're going to be getting currency early is by farming breach maps and juicing them to the max potential, which I'll show you how to do. Ideally, once you beat the 4 different difficulties of breach boss, you're going to want to level like this. You're going to want to go here to the left. So it breaches in your maps give you 50% more clasped hands, meaning that gives you a lot more breach splinters, frantic invasion. So that way you get increased quantity of breach splinters, again upping that up by breach monsters Even further, Rising Pyre, so that breaches in your maps have 40% increased monster density, giving us again more breach splinters, and then Crumbling Walls so you can get additional breaches. And if you get a map with like 10 breaches, for instance, which over time you'll eventually get one, you can get multiple levels and divines upon divines of currency from multi-breach maps. This will be the perfect setup for farming. Now, ideally, when you go to run a breach farm and you want to get tons of divine drops, perfect jeweler's orbs, tons of exalts and different currencies, and you have your Atlas tree completely buffed up, ideally, this is what you want to focus on. You want to focus on areas like this, for instance, that have tons of individual towers within the same overall radius. All these towers right here are pretty close and they're all pretty much overlapping. What you want to do is take the shortest possible path while using the least amount of nodes to get to each one of these towers to essentially unlock them. Now, once you've unlocked all of these towers, whether you buy good tablets from someone else or have some of your own, ideally you want to get tablets like this that give you 8, 9, or 10 maps in range, contain breaches, so you can max out that entire area around all those towers and make every one of those maps a breach map, first of all. Second of all, you want these two specific things on your tablets if you can get them. That being increased rarity of items found and increased quantity of items found. Those two things stacked will give you things like this, where you have increased quantity of items found. If you're not familiar what those effects do, is once you put that tablet on the tower, all of the areas within that circle will get that bonus, and some of these nodes will also turn into breach maps, meaning you can stack tons of effects on these maps. And if you're always stacking quantity and rarity of items, that means you're going to get maps like this that can have tons of extra rarity, meaning you get those big, nice, juicy rare drops, but also an increased quantity of them. And the increased quantity of items found on the actual map nodes like this themselves multiply with all of your other stats with your Atlas tree, as well as the waystone that you use itself, giving you tons and tons of loot. Now, once you've cleared out the towers, you've put in the tablets, you have an entire area full of breach nodes that have both increased rarity and tons of increased quantity bonuses on them. You can see this one has 74%. Just as an example, I'll pick this node. You'll then want to put in a waystone like this that also has increased rarity and increased quantity to multiply that even further, again helping us to juice this map to infinity. But we're not done. You want to make sure while you're farming and you have things like delirium, you take something like distilled greed, and when you have these breach maps all juiced up, you need to make sure you're using these. So you're going to take some distilled greed, you're going to put in your waystone that has an insane amount of drop chance, an insane amount of quantity, an insane amount of rarity, etc., more and more effects, and distill this with increased greed. This is going to give us extra rarity of items found, juicing this map even further. This is what's going to be giving you so much loot on your screen you can't even see. And some of these maps you can even run and get 2, 3, 4, 5 divine orbs, perfect jeweler's orbs, things like that. If you max these things to their complete potential, like I'm showing you, can give you tons and tons of currency. So much, if you do this right, you'll never have to worry about it again. Now, the same kind of idea goes for farming rituals as well. And rituals are specifically for farming Audience of the King and other different gear types. I've gotten plenty of divine orbs from this as well, but it's a little more hit and miss. Ideally, here's how you want to spec out your ritual Atlas tree, and this is going to give you the best chance to farm those Audience with the Kings for huge multiple divine profits, as well as different gear that you can select from. It's going to max out the amount of points you get and the amount of different refreshes and things like that that you get, so you can have the best possible chance of getting them. Because before these Atlas tree upgrades for the individual ritual mechanic, your chances of getting high level currency like divine orbs or Audience with the Kings are very low. It's not until you upgrade them, it's not until you upgrade and select these specific skills that you begin to actually really get the chance to get more and more of them. And I've had stretches where I farmed about 15 or 20 of these ritual maps and gotten 3 or 4 Audience with the Kings, which ended up netting me about 45 divine orbs from 20 maps. So you should definitely consider farming these as they come up and making sure you're leveling up that Atlas tree for the ritual mechanic, because otherwise you're missing out on a ton of free currency. Now, one of the greatest profits for people is going to be farming citadels. You can see here the Ancient Crisis fragment selling for this many exalted. Again, it will be less during a new league, but it'll still be comparable to what a divine costs. A Faded fragment here you can see that costs multiple divines, and a Weathered Crisis fragment that costs a divine itself. And you can make tons of easy divines this way. And the main reason being is because one citadel, especially like the Copper Citadel that gives you the highest price fragments, you should always be getting at least 3 drops, maybe even 4 drops per citadel. This is going to net you multiple divines, meaning you could run one of these Copper Citadels and get 10 divines from it just from running it, which you have to do anyways to progress the game. And ideally the way you're going to do this is with the Atlas skill tree, the way we have it set up. You have your Atlas tree set up to essentially give you bonuses to your explicit modifiers. Now the primary thing here is that we use a waystone with at least 400% waystone chance. What happens is when you use one with at least 400% waystone chance, the amount of fragments that you get depend on your waystone chance bonus or percentage. So essentially if you have 400 to 600% waystone drop chance, which you can buy online from the POE trading site, if you need to create some, ideally you can just slam exalted and corruption orbs on these to corrupt them and get them the highest waystone drop chance possible, but you want to try and find some for at least 400%. That way you can get 3 crisis fragment drops. Ideally, the ranges are if you're at 400% waystone drop chance in the background, not just on this waystone, but altogether with all the bonuses, you will get 2 fragments. If you're at 800%, you'll get 3 fragments. If you get 1200%, you'll get 4 fragments. And those are just roundabout numbers. If you're around those areas, that's what you can expect to get. Ideally, your waystone drop chance, if this was 400, would essentially get multiplied or amplified by the increased waystones found in area buff that's on this actual node. Again, you'll get that from using increased waystones found in your precursor tablets that will be put in these individual towers. So if you have a citadel like this that's surrounded by towers, you can max these out with these increased waystones found. That will apply to this node and buff that up tremendously. That will combine with the waystone drop chance percentage on your waystone, and again also be multiplied by the increased effect of explicit modifiers on your waystones, as well as increasing it additionally for each explicit modifier on your waystone itself. So you want a high waystone drop chance waystone with a ton of different effects on it. Use tablets to max out that waystone found percentage on the actual Citadel node itself. Again, you can even distill this waystone node, which is even better if you have increased rarity and quantity of items. Kill the boss and you'll be getting 3 or 4 fragment drops literally every single time, giving you tons and tons of divines for free. Now, another great way is going to be flipping currencies early because the market is going to be finding itself. So one thing you can 100% do is use the market to your advantage, especially for things like soul cores or any real regular currency item. For instance, the soul core here costs 60 exalteds on the trade site. If I go over here to Alva and go right into the currency exchange and I say I want, for instance, one of these soul cores, you can buy some up here for 60 exalts. Now, if you notice, there's only 3 of these in here for 60. So these people are probably getting spammed. So what you could do is buy it, set them in here for 69 exalts. Either people will ideally buy them up pretty quick, or the price will still kind of go up on them just because that's how the market works. People will reach out to you and you can easily sell them because some people just don't pay attention and buy off the trading site. That's one way to make some pretty easy divines pretty free, especially if you just have exalts sitting in your stash. Doing things like that with the perfect jeweler's orb, for instance, can still be pretty profitable. You can see it sells here in the currency exchange for 749 exalts. Most people in the game are smart enough that they'll buy it from the currency exchange. You can see the cheapest one here is 875 exalts on the trading site. More than likely somebody won't come on here and buy it. You can buy it for 750 and throw it up here on the trading site for, let's say, 800. If you don't sell it, you can just go back to the currency exchange and trade it back in for the same amount or more currency that you bought it for. Otherwise, somebody might come in here and buy it and you'll make 50 exalts for free without doing a single thing. So you can flip currencies like this consistently, and honestly it's a little more on the boring side, but you can do this to easily make 5 to 10 divine orbs in a day just by casually flipping items like this. Now obviously one of the big things is gear. I'll be working on a full spreadsheet, so make sure you save this video so you can see all of the items and filters the way I have them set up. Ideally, there's certain items in this game that you 100% want to be picking up with an in-game loot filter. That way you don't have to price check everything, and having knowledge of the pieces that are good and good for certain builds and sets are what's going to make you a ton of money, so you don't have to price check every single thing that you get. For instance, something like a bow with a ton of damage on it, increased attack speed, and +4 to level of all projectile skills is very, very valuable, especially with high damage on it. Any weapon with plus level to skills that it uses is gonna probably go for a lot, or at least will give you a base item that you can roll and have a chance to get an item that can sell for multiple, if not tens or hundreds of divines. Boots without movement speed are basically worth 0, but boots with movement speed and multiple resistances on them, as well as things like increased rarity and any other good stat like increased evasion and energy shield or armor if you're a warrior, are typically pretty good pieces that you can sell for a decent amount of money. The same goes for base level stellar amulets, and you want to make sure you're picking up every ring you possibly can. Now, some of the really good expensive rings are going to be high damage dealing rings, meaning that they have high lightning damage, high other physical damage, or some sort of adds certain amount of damage to attacks. These are going to be probably some of the best rings in the game because they sell for the most money, because they ultimately give you the most damage. I would always say it's good to slam at least 2 rare every single ring that you get, especially if you get multiple damage types orbs for attacks, as well as combined with high resistances can make you tons and tons of coin. Again, I'm building a full guide for that down in the description, but knowing what items you're looking for to be able to sell them for the most profit is arguably one of the most profitable ways. But every other farm that I mentioned is great for getting tons of divine orbs early, maxing out your gear, maxing out your build, allowing you to build up divines, and this will give you the biggest head start on any new league in Path of Exile 2. Thanks Eldorado.gg for sponsoring today's video. Click the link in the description to get an exclusive discount, and make sure to use code Creative Gaming on checkout to save yourself a nice chunk of change. With that being said, if you guys enjoyed, drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys in the next one.